Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. My name is Jordan, with a silent PH in the middle, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over at Sir Lucian Gaming. Good morning, sir.
That's me. Yay, good morning. Yay. How are you?
I'm good. Hopefully we have no audio issues because, you know, is tradition.
It would be. You sound a little gravelly, though. Have you had a cold lately? Or
I have not, but I was up late doing theater.
That'll do it.
So
I was going to say that, or were you in a play so you had a lot of lines?
I was in a play, yeah. So we had, we did a remount of a show we did like 5 years ago called The Unxmas Story. And it's the same cast, but it's kind of like an alternative late night Christmas show. And we started at 11 o'clock at night. And so I was out till like 1 a.m, and I'm like, I'm tired. So yeah, Grenard, is D&D not a play? Well, you do play a game, but no, this is the theater. So yeah, I'm a little
you project
tired.
Your voice, so you use your voice a little stronger than you would typically anywhere else. Yep.
And it's cold and super dry, and I just woke up. So come on, cut me some slack, Lucian.
I want that radio. I want that silky smooth radio voice you have. You know?
Hello, welcome to WBAIN.
Perfect.
That's Wibagian.
Dungeons and Dragons. That's what this show's about, right?
Yeah, let's talk about D&D. I mean, we had a list of stuff to talk about, and then
Jordan
unfortunately, not unfortunately, but Nerd Immersion made a video late last night, and if you haven't watched it, you probably should. And then before that, Quest and Beast made a video, and there was a bunch of Hasbro stuff that came out. So we're gonna kind of go through all of this, and then probably get to the regular stuff we were gonna talk about. But I'm gonna do this in reverse order, so to kind of build up why Nerd Immersion made this video. So Hasbro, in a stockholder presentation,
which I think is important to say.
Very important to say, is it is public, so it's not like this was leaked or anything, but it is for shareholders. And the goal of this presentation is to say, how are we going to make more money than we made last year? And
that's all shareholders care
They're
about.
talking about the new direction of Dungeons & Dragons because of 1D&D in the 50th anniversary. And they said that they believe the new frontrunner of Dungeons & Dragons believes that D&D is under-monetized, and specifically said rather than trying to improve the game or game mechanics, they believe like that's going well. People enjoy the game. So them as financial directors at top are trying to say, we want to create more on-ramps for existing players to spend money. 20% of, or the majority of all of the sales go to dungeon masters. And so they're looking at that as saying, wow, we have this one person spending a lot of money on D&D, but these 5 other players are not. How do we get them to spend money on D&D? And the idea is that, sorry, the idea is that we're going to have, they didn't say this, but everyone's speculating, but like subscriptions to 1D&D or to D&D Beyond, subscription fees. And then the idea of like loot boxes potentially. And I mean, all of these things that we've seen in video games that have become very popular because it is a way to get players to spend a lot of money on cosmetic
dirty
things.
Microtransactions.
And so that's where the community is thinking that it's going. They didn't outright say that. They just said that they believe it is under-monetized. And in that same presentation, they said that they want D&D to be a life brand. And I kind of knew what that was, but the best example I've seen is Harley Davidson. I'm not a Harley Davidson person, but when you meet one of those Harley Davidson people, they've got the patches. They've got Harley merchandise in their house. It's not just about the motorcycle. Like,
their truck is painted in the Harley Davidson colors.
Thank you. Like owning a motorcycle of Harley Davidson and being a Harley person really is your lifestyle. And so when you walk around and somebody else sees that you have a Harley sticker or this, they're like, oh, we're brothers because we're both like Harley. They want D&D to be like that. So not only are you playing D&D, but like your personality is Dungeons and Dragons, which is kind of who I am. But at the same time, I don't.
You're wearing a dice.
Yeah, I've got my Gen Con hoodie on. So, but like I don't necessarily want to be. Wow, that guy paid Wizards of the Coast a lot of money. You know.
But
I don't know.
You do want to be the D&D guy.
But I like being the D&D guy. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. So. That's probably not bad because they're hoping this movie will kick off a whole Marvel Cinematic Universe franchise of Dungeons & Dragons movies. Which, hey, if it's popular, it might. Who knows? And if it's in the right hands, who knows? It's all about, does it sell? Is it popular? Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So, go ahead. Sorry, you want to respond?
I'd like to... Yeah, there's a part in there that's an interesting part of that conversation. If you take all of the other stuff out of it, this idea that we sell a product that involves, on average, we'll say, and they probably know what the average is, we'll just say it's 6 people, and one person in that group of 6 is basically going to be the majority of our monetary contact with that group, but there'll be 5 others that only really touch a little bit with us, but maybe not even that much or at all. So as a company just sitting back and saying, okay, Jordan, we've got this great company, and it could be we sell blenders or something, I don't know, whatever it is, and we have that issue sitting in front of us. How would you even tackle that? Or do you even see it as a problem, or does somebody just raise their hand and just say, well, but we're making 20% profit than we made last year, so does it really matter if anybody else is buying? We're already doing really well because that one person's buying everything. Or do we try to adjust it so there is more money coming from the other members of this thing that are enjoying this thing we've created or create?
Yeah, I don't have the answer because I'm not a financial person, but I know that
like
a
if
lot
we had
of
a theme park and we sold tickets to families, but we only charged dad. Everybody else got in for free. At some point, would the theme park go, God, we really should be charging the mom and the kids or the double dads or the double moms or, whatever it is?
I think so.
Because they're riding the rides too.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's the idea of like kids under 3 are free because they're not like they have to be attached to their mom or dad because they're 3 and they're probably not riding rides. But I was thinking about like some of the business practices of especially mobile games. They talk about whales, and it's and it's like the idea of, we made this mobile game and it's infuriating to play, but if you spend a lot of money, you get a rise to the top really, really fast, and they rely on those like 5 or 6 people that will literally spend like thousands of dollars on gems and whatever, just so when they play the game, they're at a higher level than everybody else. And they call those the whales. And that's a business model where it's like, we don't need the rest of these people to play. We just need those people that are really generating our money to be happy, and then keep it open enough that there's enough like free loser players for people to be in a game, So I don't know. I don't have an answer, but I do know, like, I keep thinking that they're looking at those Wizards of the Coast, back to them, that they're looking at these $1 million Kickstarters, and it's like, where's our money? Like, why don't we get a part of that? Not understanding that the fact that those are making $1 million is probably what's making D&D $1 billion. In all honesty, like, oh my gosh, it's so popular that this thing has made it even more popular. Like, I think going into like Colville's work, like I think that was the first $1 million D&D Kickstarter, or for 5e, and it kind of set a precedent where other companies were making more.
Yeah. And the second thing you had said kind of brought another thought up to jump into the. So at some point in this company, and we're thinking of the corporate side, because when we say stockholder meeting, we're thinking of, Hasbro.
It's a Hasbro.
Is that group?
Meeting,
yeah. So there's a group of people that are meant to make stockholders happy. That's their job. And so when they sit down if me and you were part of that job and we sat down at the table with the other 5 or 6 people that have that job and we said, okay, man, D&D 5e, everybody really loves it. Why are we making any more or thinking about changing it and then kind of blowing that up? Why don't we just stop doing that? And why don't we just find ways to make money off of what we already have? And then we don't even need designers like Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford, because we don't need more stuff. They love the stuff we already have. We just need to find a way to monetize the stuff we already have out there, you know? Like how, so it's almost like there's a weird logic that could come up from somebody who's only looking at it from a money angle, from a pure money angle, to say, why are we spending all this time putting new products out or putting a book out that kind of sells but really isn't that great? Like the Dragonlance book, you know, what are the numbers of that compared to Atasha's, or what are the numbers of that compared to it? I could see a logic in their heads, not that I agree with it, that would be, why are we putting that kind of book out that's barely selling compared to our others? Why don't we just monetize this and sell more t-shirts? Or why don't we do this and we can sell things online that gives them another class or another thing, but we charge them $6 for every one of those things we do? Like, why don't we buy D&D Beyond so that we can build background images and sell different avatar skins for your D&D Beyond site at $7 each, and then they'll love that because it's all nostalgia, and they can buy their Boo, and they can buy their Minx, you know, version of that, and then we can sell them this. So I can see, like, there's a group of people who, when they only look at these types of products for the money, can get way into the weeds of not understanding what we believe the game is and what the community really, I think, on the general wants it to be. We want it to be a storytelling game engine that's innovative and allows us to tell stories with each other and get together in a social contract of friends and family and, you know, whoever else you have coming to your games and play this cool game and have cool, fun things, a cool experience. That's what we want out of it, you know. But if you try to over monetize that, you get Disneyland, right? You get a theme park that's charging you $50 for popcorn, and you know, when you can buy $2 of popcorn at the store. But hey, it's Disney popcorn, so that's much bigger. And
well, and Disney is another prime example of a lifestyle brand. You know,
yeah.
We talk. Me and my wife talk about it because she grew up in Southern California, and she just openly admits, she's like, I drank the Disney Kool-Aid. I love all things Disney, and I don't understand it. I'm like, like the rides are fine, like they do a good job. The movies, like, I don't know, but
yeah, she drank the
just
Kool-Aid.
She loves it. Like that's what she wants.
I've got friends that go every single year. They've gone since they were a young couple and were married. They've gone now that they have kids. They've gone for a decade and a half. They go every single year to Disney World, and they love it. It's not like it's a chore for them, or they enjoy it. They look forward to it every year, and they go back every single year. They're in it. So I could see D&D. There's a group in there that could do that. So when Hasbro comes together and they start talking to those shareholders, and it's only people who are looking at monetization, it's such a negative way to look at their product. And so I could see how the community probably did not react so well to stuff like that. But I guess if you're a shareholder, that's probably all good news, right? But if you're not a shareholder...
Well, yeah. And I mean...
maybe we should be shareholders.
It's to say, hey, don't sell your stock. You know, we're going to make you more money. And whether this is, I don't know. Anyway, but this kind of goes into the next part, which is Questing Beast made a video that said D&D doesn't need Wizards of the Coast. And it was a really kind of fun video to think about, where I don't think of D&D as like Wizards of the Coast, whereas like Disney is Disney. Like, I can't say, does Disney need, or I don't know, my cat's meowing up a storm. I don't understand what's going on, but I'm trying to think of the equivalent. Like does your, it's gone now. I don't know. I can't think of one, but like, does Marvel need Disney? Like, I don't know. Like, does my love of comic books need Disney? Does me drawing a comic book need Disney? It's like, probably not. And it's kind of the same way, like me playing D&D at my table with my friends, no miniatures, none of this stuff. I don't need Wizards of the Coast, you know? But if I play Magic the Gathering, I need Wizards of the Coast.
Because they make the cards.
Because, well, they make the cards, and it's not just making the cards, but they update the game. They keep it regulate, things like that. But for D&D, there's such an emphasis on the rule of cool, and I don't know, sure, I'll let you do it. Like, well, let's just roll the dice and see what happens. It literally can be anything you want, And so it's kind of weird where I'm like, I agree. I was like, I don't think D&D does need Wizards of the Coast. And if one D&D fails, which we've already seen with 4th edition, it's going to splinter off into all these other different things. And people are going to play OGL games or Pathfinder or whatever game they want to play.
They kind of are now.
And they are, yeah. But that's because of 4th edition. Like, it's all, DCC came about because of the OGL and things like that.
And some of it is people want a game that's different than Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. But I guess maybe I'm trying to say D&D is, for a lot of people, D&D means role-playing game. And role-playing games won't die if Wizards of the Coast takes away D&D in some way, or changes it so fundamentally that it doesn't feel like a role-playing game. It feels like an online transaction machine.
Yeah.
So
now I do think Dungeons and Dragons itself needs a big company behind it to keep it as the forefront of all things tabletop role-playing game, the Kleenex of the world. You don't get that if you have a 4-person team and that's all you've devoted to it. It doesn't stay at the top like that if that's all you've done.
Well, it was a 2-person team back in 1970s,
If companies that are making similar things, if you stay at the top, you have to be the one that's spending the money in the advertisements, the magazines, the movies, the TV shows, the clothing paraphernalia, putting out regular products on a basis that's company sized, right? You're putting books out. They're putting like 5 or 6 books out a year. Nobody just pulls that off. Monty Cook doesn't pull off typically 5 or 6 books. They do Kickstarters for theirs, and they get a couple of books out, and they're actually probably closer to being able to do that, but they're still not even a 4-person job anymore either. I think they're up to like 20 employees over at that company, so it's much bigger now. Paizo is a big company, has lots of people at it too, not as big as D&D. I don't think you stay at the top and be the top one if you don't have a big company backing you of some sort. You can change the name Wizards of the Coast to something else. You can sell it to Microsoft, or you can sell it to somebody else that's into games, like who might Blizzard could buy it, or Activision could buy it, or something like that. But I don't think you stay at the top. But I do understand when Questing Beast says we can play D&D. If they shut everything down and close the doors and turn the lights off, Dungeons and Dragons games don't stop. They continue from now on forever, because there's old school D&D. We have the books already. They can't take them away.
I think what it comes down to is the players are generating the content for D&D. Like, players are not generating the content for Magic the Gathering. But players are generating...
You nailed it.
Yeah.
That was
players are generating the content for that. So.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's a different proposition. But I liked what you said in Twitter too. It was like, but they're giving us new products, and that's what keeps me interested. And by them creating new projects or new products, if they're putting out new Forgotten Realms books and they start diving into more places in the Forgotten Realms, you're in heaven. You're the Forgotten Realms lore guy, right? You're like, yeah, give me more about this spot and give me more about that spot and tell me all the histories of 10,000 years of what's going on in Forgotten Realms, because I want that. They're giving us something we want, or people wouldn't really buy it.
Yeah, I don't think we're talking about the same thing anymore. We're kind of went in a full circle, but yeah.
But
like, you're right.
But I'm just
if
saying,
they sell cool products, I'm going to buy them.
Yeah, and that's why we do need Wizards of the Coast, because they are selling
I don't think we
cool
do,
stuff.
because somebody else, like the Midgard World book is so good. And yeah, like they own Forgotten Realms, but Felix, go away.
Kitty.
You're so loud.
Little kitty.
I don't know what's wrong.
Hungry.
But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, my cat distracted me.
We can't just look at them as the company that owns Dungeons & Dragons, because they're also the creators that are giving us new stuff for Dungeons & Dragons. which keeps it relevant, keeps it great, I think. They're not just giving us crap either. They're giving us good quality stuff that I'm buying and putting on my shelves and reading through and loving. So I do think we need them just because I get more cool stuff. Just like I think we need Matt Colville putting stuff out. I think we need Paizo putting stuff out because it's cool, good stuff.
Then you don't need Wizards of the Coast because Paizo is putting out cool stuff.
No,
Matt is putting out cool stuff.
I need them all.
I'm a firm believer that we need to treat Wizards of the Coast the same as third-party publishers because they come out with, frankly, Spelljammer, and I'm not impressed, and I'm really sad. But Monty Cook Games comes out with Planebreaker, and it's amazing. And I feel like I could use that book all day long.
But you did treat them the same because you bought both books.
That's what I'm telling you. Like, we're talking in circles because I want to treat them the same. That's what I want to do.
I think I do.
So I
treat
think
them
that
the same.
emphasizes the fact that like I don't need Wizards of the Coast any more than I need Paizo. Like I don't need Paizo to make stuff for me.
But explain how you're treating D&D. How are you treating Wizards different? What are you doing right now that you think in your mind is you're treating them differently?
Not playing Dungeons and Dragons? Like I'm actively not playing right now. I'm playing DCC.
But that would mean...
I am playing Dungeons & Dragons. So, in my Great Modron March book thing, I'm playing older adventures. I'm not utilizing anything but the mechanics of 5e. I'm playing an older adventure, I'm converting it myself, and I'm using third-party stuff for NPCs and certain other quirks and some planar travel mechanics. I'm not running anything Wizards of the Coast right now other than we're using the player's handbook and Tasha's.
Correct. So you're not treating them differently. Your argument is we shouldn't treat them differently. And we're not.
Yeah.
We treat them just like all the other companies. We
yeah,
either
you
buy
were
the
saying,
products we like or we don't.
were saying that we need Wizards of the Coast. Like, because they make quality products and they make this.
Wizards of the Coast, Matt Colville. We need all these people because we don't want them all to go away because then we would only be able to create our own stuff. We want people creating cool stuff for us.
Yeah.
In that context, I think we need them. Not that we need them and nobody else.
Okay, I took it incorrectly then. I apologize.
I gotcha.
Because I was like, well, we don't. But anyway.
I need Chris Perkins creating stuff for me. I need it. Maybe
I do like Chris
does.
Perkins stuff creating.
I need Keith Baker creating stuff for us. I need, Monty Cook creating stuff for us.
So this culminates in a video last night that Nerd Immersion put out. And if you go hashtag OpenDND, it's not trending. I was going to say trending on Twitter. It's not trending, officially trending. But if you search for hashtag OpenDND, a lot of people are talking about it. And the gist of it is a lot of people, third-party publishers, were kind of scared because they didn't know what the OGL for 1D&D was going to look like. They're kind of like, what do we do? And behind the scenes, people are trying, third-party publishers were in the brink of like, guys, we need to dedicate a team to creating our own game. Because if 1D&D is going to be like 4th edition, where the license is not friendly enough to use, we need to create our own game and then support that. This is what Paizo did. Because 4th edition was not friendly, Paizo made everything for Wizards of the Coast. They ran magazines for them. They did all this stuff. Like, they really were partners. And I'm dropping frames. I should be back.
No.
They really were partners. And then with 4th edition, it was like, well, if you want to make stuff for us again, here's this really crappy license where we control everything. And at the drop of a hat, we can revoke all of the stuff you've published and you're no longer allowed to make money off of it. And it's like, what? So they made Pathfinder. And they're like, we're going to support this. So a lot of these publishers are already talking about that, where they're like, and can you imagine if Critical Role came out with Critical Role 5e, or like if they came out with their own version of Dungeons and Dragons? I'm a firm believer that I think the Critical Role fan base is almost like, it's large. And I think that they could be like, oh yeah, I'll play the Matt Mercer version of 5e. Why not? So there's that.
It's big enough to sustain itself for sure.
Which, I mean, was like they made what 7 or 8 million last year, and D&D brought in $1 billion. So it's not like they're in the same ballpark, but like fans and people who play games, I think are fans. So with this, all of these third-party publishers kind of freaking out and stuff. And apparently fandom, when they own D&D Beyond, were in a lot of talks about adding third-party content from Kobold Press and from Paizo and from MCDM. I'm making those names because I don't know who they were exactly talking to, but they were talking to third-party publishers, and those are the big ones. And if you remember that they had those weird classes from Legends of Runeterra that appeared on D&D Beyond and then were taken down like a week later. That was like a tie-in for that. So they were told by Wizards of the Coast, like, you need to remove those, probably for like whatever reasons. Well, then it was all because Hasbro had the intention of buying that, but they didn't want to buy it with like all of these weird third-party things in there. And so it kind of, that was one of the reasons. Wizards of the Coast had a really big like leash on fandom when it came to D&D Beyond, and it's kind of interesting to see it in retrospect now, the decisions that were halted because of Wizards of the Coast. Now they buy that, and so everyone's like, oh my gosh, they have their own digital platform, they're not going to need us anymore, everything's going to be centralized through that, we're going to have to do all this other stuff. This was a big, long, boring way of explaining to you that Ted's information in his video is apparently Wizards of the Coast is sending out emails to third-party publishers and content creators. I haven't received any of these, FYI. I'm not on Wizards of the Coast radar, which is okay. And it's to say, we want to talk about the OGL and what it means for you going forward. So it could be like, I want to partner with you about the OGL for 1D&D, or I want to... They just said they want to talk, but in order to talk, they're requiring you to sign a non-disclosure agreement, which would then bar you from talking about it with other people. And so I would look at that and be like, no, thank you, because if it's not information I can publicly talk about with other people, then I don't want that information, you know? Unless I'm receiving a paycheck from you and I'm actively working on the thing that is an NDA, that's completely different. So a lot of Ted's slant of this on the Nerd Immersion video was they're trying to silence people with legal action in a way. Like, if I can get these people, if I can get the Teds of the world who are releasing all of our stuff, or not releasing, but like breaking news all the time about Wizards of the Coast, if I can stop them talking about the OGL, then we might be in a better place for when the OGL actually comes out, or the more restricted version for 1D&D and things like that. And he just kind of said no thank you and made this video instead. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Like, it's kind of stuff like this where you're like, I love Chris Perkins and things like that. I don't look at the man as the company, but, you know, he's not the head of Hasbro, and Hasbro is going to make decisions that make shareholders happy. And alienating all of these other content creators or third-party publishers is, I don't know, they want them all to be under the rule of thumb, you know, one corporation to rule them all. So
I don't know. I feel like that's a very cynical way to look at, we're going to give you the opportunity to look at new innovative stuff we're working on. But to do that, we can't just have you just going out and telling everybody about stuff that may or may not actually, if it's during testing, it may or may not even get done. It may not even get used. But if all of a sudden you create a, 2-hour video on how bad the game is because we tried out an initiative rule that is the most terrible initiative rule in the world. And now you're poisoning everybody's thought on this when really it was just us testing a rule out or trying something out to see what it looked like.
And I agree.
An NDA is about, we're going to give you access to information that's not made public yet.
Yes.
So that we can get your feedback.
This isn't playtesting from what it was looking at, though.
Oh.
It was, they needed to sign an NDA to have a meeting to discuss how content creators are going to handle talking about the OGL going forward and stuff, is kind of what I've heard. But again, watch Ted's video. Like, yeah. I don't want to put words in his mouth. Maybe I'm interpreting it incorrectly, but it was kind of interesting. But yeah, I don't know. So, but I also think this is kind of the plus side of this, I think, is Wizards of the Coast is looking at the larger community and saying, maybe we do need them. Like, maybe this game is bigger than just Dritz in the Forgotten Realms. Maybe we should talk to other people, you know? And you look at, like, Acquisitions Incorporated and Vox Machina, like, those are original characters that came out of D&D, but they're bigger than the realms in a way. They're bigger than, you know, so.
For sure. And I wonder if that's how it worked with D&D Next, and if it worked that way with the original OGL, if there was a period of time before it's announced or it's released that they bring people in and have them sign an NDA then. Is this something that's...
You know, that was before YouTube, so, you know, who really knows? Yeah. Like, well, D&D Next wasn't before YouTube, but, yeah, I don't know. Like, YouTube's 2009.
And we are in a different time, right? Because, when D&D Next hits... Critical Role is playing Pathfinder at home at that point.
Yeah.
They're not even thinking about putting a show onto Twitch. And when they do start to think about that, D&D 5 is just about to drop when Critical Role decides to do its show with Felicia Day and
Geek and Sundry.
Channel, Geek and Sundry's channel. And they make that pivot. I think it was even earlier, the way I heard the story, was that they were going to change it to D&D 5e because it had just released, and they were going to then they were going to get some
the new hot thing.
Even though they had been playing Pathfinder that whole, you know, in their home campaign, which I think was interesting. So, yeah, I wonder how we're in such a different time now. Then now it's also publicized, and now there's so many content creators that are, you know, trying to be first to talk about stuff. Or
there's a new content creator for D&D like every week. I feel, not that I'm saying this is bad. If you want to make videos, please make videos. I'm just surprised because, like, back in the day, there were like 5 of us, niche. And it was hey everybody, we're making videos, and we all kind of like me and AJ made lore videos, and Ted made whatever videos he was making, and Cody made videos on mechanics and stuff. Yeah. And Questing Beast was over there in the OSR. And now I like start searching, and I'm like, who is this guy with their hot take? Like, that's great lighting. What is going on?
They're making map videos, how to draw maps.
Matt Colville and stuff. Like, it was just there were few of us, I feel, and now there's like so many, but it's fun.
Yeah.
So we'll put that aside because we don't need to talk about it anymore. But yeah.
I think it's true that there should be fear that something's going to change about the OpenGL, because the way the OpenGL is right now, it has allowed a bonanza of third-party people to create content and build businesses and build livelihoods based off of using that to put something out that they really want. That allowed, you know, Kobold Press to do stuff. That allowed it allowed Bounty Cook to put out Tolus in a 5e version. It allowed, you know, all these people to make products and sell them based off of D&D 5. So a fear that something could change and all of a sudden not let people do that is real, and people should fight, you know, to be like, hey, we really like the way it's working. What I think we should fight with is to show how it benefits them, and it can still benefit us without making it one-sided in one way, right?
Correct. And I
instead of trying to fight them in a different way of like, let's shut them down, or let's cancel them, or we'll show them we'll never buy their products again, and we'll make them go away. Don't, you know, fight by trying to show them the benefits of keeping it the way it is and how it benefits both parties.
Yeah, and I think that is the goal from a lot of the third-party publishers, from what I've heard. I was watching Mastering Dungeon, which is another podcast on YouTube that I was listening to, and they're both freelance writers that have worked for Wizards of the Coast, and they said, like, I think what we want to do is just prove that because of the MCDMs and the Paizo's and the Kobold Presses of the world, your game is actually more popular. And so like
you're benefiting from
don't, you know, but then also because of this, people look at our stuff and they're like, well, that's not canon, so I don't have to try and include it in my game, but I could if I wanted to. Like it really is the best of both worlds, because they can make a weird broken class, and if it's not popular, or if it is popular, it's still like, well, you know, that's not official for, I don't know, whatever tournament you're going to run or something like that. So I think that's the best of both worlds, is that the executives see that, but I think also executives are going to say, hey, Kobold Press, if you want to make something for 1D&D, pay us a $10,000 licensing fee, and then we will do it. Because then they'll be like, okay, yeah, I mean, it's our intellectual property, so, but.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. Real quick, though, Tyranny of Dragons is getting re-released again, which I don't understand. This is not the coolest, best adventure ever, I feel. It's not a bad adventure, but it's just kind of like, what?
Got a cool name.
It does have a cool name. Tiamat's the villain. And there was a poster for Stranger Things Season 5 that has a 3-headed dragon-looking thing in the distance. And so it got me thinking, you know, we've had Vecna and the Mind Flayer and Demogorgon. I was like, is Tiamat going to be the next villain for Season 5? And Tiamat in the Stranger Things sense. It won't actually be Tiamat, but it'll be something that they're like, oh, I'm going to refer to this as Tiamat. And I think that's probably why they're re-releasing Tyranny of Dragons. Because I want to say, like, they put a shiny new cover on it. Tiamat's on the cover. And they're like, okay. And then people are going to Stranger Things. It's an introductory adventure to D&D, you know? Like, I think... So they're going to revise it a little bit and fix it up and then re-release it. But, boy, the cover is real cool looking. It's freaking Tiamat's heads, and she's holding a big old orb of magic, and there's fire and brimstone. And, yeah, and it says, defy the queen of evil dragons. So, yeah, I think this is a Stranger Things tie-in. That is my interpretation. So,
and I wonder too, those first couple of adventures that come out for 5th edition, not written by Wizards of the Coast at that point, but written by other companies, seem to be the ones they're trying to redo. So I wonder if there's just some internal look at these that thought that quality of those two products, because it was Tyranny of Dragons they put out, and then the other one, right? Princes of the Apocalypse were not written by Wizards of the Coast originally.
Yeah, I think it was just because they were busy making those the DMsGuild or the Dungeon Masters, the Dungeon Masters Guide.
Books,
I was like,
5e books,
book?
yeah.
I was like, what am I trying to say? The Dungeon Masters Guide, and then the Monster Manual. So because of that, they were like, we don't have time to build this. So they hired Kobold Press to make Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat, which then got bundled together into Tyranny of Dragons. So
So I wonder if that's why. And if
I think they did write Princes of the Apocalypse. I can't remember though, but you're probably
feeling like that was the other one, because then eventually Storm King Thunder comes out, and that's when I think Wizards of the Coast is back to making their own adventures. They're not making the core books anymore. That's set and done. Now they're on to adventure books, new rule books, anthology books, you know, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
It is interesting. I mean, I like the idea of Tyranny of Dragons, though. I mean, I love the idea of it's the Dungeons and Dragons game. So to have, you know, a big quintessential dragon book makes sense to me. But then they have Dragonlance that just came out. So I don't know if that would be your quintessential dragon book or not.
So, Lucian, when did you start playing Baldur's Gate 3?
God, when they allowed us in on Steam, which must have been a year or 2 years ago.
I think it was 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half.
2 years, yeah.
We're finally getting a release date for Baldur's Gate 3, which just feels funny because I forget it's not a release.
It's been in early access. Yes.
Early access.
It's been a playable game for a while. Yeah, but it's been in early access.
And it's been like 2 years. It's just ridiculous. Well, it's finally coming out August of 2023. So there's a $270 collector's edition.
I hadn't heard of that. Yeah.
$270. What do you think comes with this? Obviously the game, but
I'm guessing some video games put out giant boxes, almost like
That's what
lockers
this is, yeah.
of stuff. So it could have like a life-size sword in it for all we know.
Yeah.
Like it could be something pretty crazy. So
Well,
my hope is it's something like that. Like they give you a suit of armor and then the game
cool.
and then like, here's what you paid for two and then some paraphernalia. I hope it's not really bad, but
Well, no, it's not bad, I think. There's a cloth map, which I'm a big fan of cloth maps, and apparently it's
Cloth
like
maps
of
are
a
cool.
huge section of Faerun. There's the game on Steam. There's a game certificate, which I'm like, I guess it's a collector's thing. I don't know. An art book, a 160-page art book, which is kind of cool. Stickers, which I'm like, okay, you get stickers. A collector's box. Character sheets for all of the NPCs in the game, or the characters in the game, which I thought was cool. Like 5e character sheets for them.
That's kind of cool.
And a keychain that is the illithid tadpole that goes into your eye. But it's a keychain, and it looks so creepy. An oversized D20, some Magic the Gathering boosters for one of the Baldur's Gate booster packs.
Baldur's Gate games.
And the big thing is a 25 centimeter Mind Flayer versus Drow statue thing. I don't think I will be picking up the collector's edition, but it looks kind of cool. But it's just like,
Now,
holy cow! Really, the only thing I want is that map and the keychain.
yeah. Let me switch that around. What if the statue was a Gundam fighting something else?
Fighting
and then you had a map of the
Zaku or
universe.
something,
You had you had the role-playing game Gundam. Then you had the game Gundam.
Yeah. Statue figurine collectors are a different set of people.
Different breed of people.
And I'm not one of them. I do have miniatures and stuff, but I've never been like, I don't know. I've never been that kind of like, oh my gosh, I need this posable thing or this action figure collection or something. So I think that's why it doesn't really speak to me. But
I'm gonna go to the game store
cool.
today. So. And at my comic book store, somebody has put two big dioramas of quintessential. It's one of them is the different X-Men climbing over like a giant sized what's the big robots they fight in X-Men?
The Sentinels.
Sentinels. So there's this big Sentinel, and it's got Wolverines hanging off them and trying to claw them. It's got all these different X-Men on it, and it must be like, it's huge, right?
Yeah.
And I think the price on it was like, I don't know, maybe it's $500 or $1,000 or something, but it's all painted and it's all sculpted and it's all whatever. I'm gonna take some pictures and send it and say, okay, Jordan, if this was a franchise you really love, one of the franchises you like the most, and it was this size and these characters, would you pay money for this one? I'll send you a couple because I thought there was two of them. One was an X-Men one, and one was something else.
I don't know. I don't know. I would have to really rearrange my house to find room for stuff like that.
To have a big diorama. Yeah, there are people who like to. I mean, Funko Pop collectors or the people that get the comic book ones. I just saw one where they're building really intricate action figure models of comic book characters, Batmans and Supermans and Wolverines and all this stuff. And some of them can be like bust life size, like their head's life size, or their, or maybe it's this big and it's like the Batmobile and something else. And so it's definitely a big
it's
part
it's
of
a whole culture, I think. And it kind of is those toy collectors. Like I follow Toy Galaxy on YouTube, and they're a great channel. But like they get so hyped about like, look
movie
at the posability of this like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, and I'm like, I just don't. Okay, cool, posability, but like people love it. Still, that's a price tag, $270. But again, the regular game will be like 50 something, I think. And
if I could have
you can already get it on Steam now, but it officially releases August of 2023. Gotta wait another 6 months, 8 months.
8 months. Well, also, they just had their live, just kind of feeding back into that. They had a live show again. They do these once a year. To talk about where they're at in the development, what they've been adding. And Paladin was the latest thing that's just been dropped. So that's the class that's been dropped. And I think we have all classes now, or there might be only one missing at the moment. And that, I think, is one of the reasons it's taken a long time. Because they didn't just decide to do Baldur's Gate and we'll pick 4 classes and you can choose from them like any game and then you move on. No. They're running Dungeons and Dragons. That means if they're going to do it, that's 12 classes, and that's a bunch of subclasses, and that's and then the races that are involved, and then all the dialogue and all the.
And I don't know, is it just the core classes of the player's handbook, because that's still 8 subclasses for wizard. You know, like some of those
they're doing
big.
modified versions, and I don't think they're doing all of the subclasses, but they're picking and choosing.
But it will
some
be
of the
12
subclasses.
classes then, huh? Like,
I think so.
yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, I think so, because the one I played recently, a few months back, was the druid, because the druid had gotten dropped, and that's pretty cool. And now we've been waiting on the paladin. I can't think if there's what might be left that they haven't done yet. I think maybe they've covered them all. I'll have to go back to it and check it out. It's a big game. It's really, 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 really big.
So I've been waiting. I think it'll be fun to play through it without having like, oh, I have to go through the intro yet again kind of a thing. So
yeah, I've played that about 20 times now.
Yeah. It's kind of like the people that played the Diablo 3 demo like over and over.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's just wait for the game, guys. But OSR news. I really just want to talk about this because I'm going to participate in it. But Sean McCoy of Mothership fame, he wrote Mothership. He kind of started this idea of like, why don't we get a year-long planner and you'll write a dungeon room a day. And by the end of the year, you'll have each month is a level. You'll have a 12 level deep dungeon with 365 rooms. And I was like, that's so cool. I want to do it. We'll see if I stick with it. But I think I'm going to try and document the process. Maybe I'll start a blog and take photos every day. Or maybe I'll do a quick video blog once a week of like my week-long progress. It's going to be really informal. I think it'll be on the Jocular Junction channel. So subscribe there. Or maybe this channel. I don't know. But I want to do something because, so I bought my notebook and I'm filling out all the prompts and stuff, and I think I'm going to start tomorrow morning to get kind of a jump on it. But it's called Dungeon23 for Dungeon 2023. A lot of people are participating. It's kind of it's become pretty big.
It sounds super fun.
A lot of people are doing it, and if you want to participate, I would encourage you. And I think if this is successful, I could really see this being a yearly thing where kind of like NaNoWriMo or something where people are going to like, oh yeah, it's the new mega dungeon. So it's Dungeon 24. And like, how cool, even if you don't run it, what a great exercise in creativity is kind of my idea is like, oh yeah, like, I don't know. And then maybe your friends can stumble on the 7th layer of your dungeon and you can use it for like 1 or 2 things. But Dungeon 23, it looks pretty cool. Let's talk about MCDM.
I am all about it.
What are they doing?
I am all about it. Packet number 4 has just dropped. If any of you are getting for their monster book that they're putting out, Flea Mortals. In it, there's a video you can watch where Matt talks about it a tiny bit over on his channel, and you can download it if you're already a part of that Kickstarted program for that one. And they have Engelotls, which are tree folk-like or tree frog-like folk. And what they're doing with his, if you guys remember from some of the other packets they put out, they take a creature, but then they create several types of that same creature to give you this idea of a community of them or something you might face, a war band of them or a group of them that might have this. So like if they take gnolls, which is in this packet, then there's like 4 or 5 different types of gnolls that you would meet if you come across, a gnoll war band of some sort. It might have one type of a Bissell caster, and it might have this other warrior type, and it might have this other type. And they all have their different mechanics and stuff to it. So the Engelotls are the tree frog folk. I put in their fog. Gnolls, they started their undead for the first time, which they will have plenty in this book, and it's the spectral undead. So these are the incorporeal ones. So ghosts and wraiths and things like that. They put in what they call the Time Raiders. They have another name, but these are like astral sea. I almost think of these as like the Gith Yankee of
They
Matt
look
Colville's
very
world
Gith-like, except they have multiple arms, but yeah.
It seemed pretty cool. The Gibbering Mouther. They're doing a griffin. So they are picking regular creatures too that you might do, but they're putting the Matt Cole, the MCDM spin on it.
It's their monster book, yeah.
So there's a bunch in there. And what I liked about what he had talked about is that they're already like so many. I think he said it was like we're at like 250 pages or whatever in a book. He's like, and we have no overlord telling us, you guys need to trim that down. We can only put a book out of 200 pages. He was like, we can do whatever we want. And I was like, God, that's so cool. You can just like, if we want a 400-page book of cool monsters. We're putting out a 400-page book of cool monsters. We don't care, you know? And I was just like, that is so cool. So you can go out and get the packet. You can test these creatures in your games. They've also created a Mad Max themed adventure that you can play. And if you document playing that, they're keeping a leaderboard of people who are submitting documented games.
That's right.
To see their times and their whatever, and you can send it in, and then you can see where your group had.
But you have to use the pre-generated characters to make it fair and stuff. But that's cool.
I think there's some things to it, but you can run your group through it. It's an adventure that they created and had some fun with some mechanics and some Mad Max kind of themed stuff. And I thought that's a fun way to do things too, is have people submit, because that's something that we've missed from Dungeons and Dragons from the past.
Tournaments
are the living campaign games, the games where the comic book stores and game stores would host events. People would come in and play for a day. All these DMs and party members doing things. They would gather the information of what happened from those adventures, send it into a central location, and that would then get posted somewhere about how that's changing the story or how that's affecting the overall world campaign that's going on. They used to do some of that stuff back in the day. Gen Con was kind of an area where a lot of that was centered around, even though Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons & Dragons have kind of taken a step back from Gen Con. I kind of wish we had a living camp. This is the best time ever
because of
do
the internet,
living campaign
honestly.
thing, because of the internet, because of Twitter and because of all of the content creators putting, hosting what their teams are doing and their groups are doing. And
you could finish a game on Tuesday and Wednesday have like all this new cool information flooding in.
Yeah, so I think we're at the perfect time for a living campaign to work. I wish somebody would jump on that idea, and maybe Paizo will do it. I think they've done some living campaign stuff in the past. With their Pathfinder Society stuff, maybe with
I know
Wizards of the Coast, maybe they could do theirs.
Yeah, I know game stores would be all about it, because I think they're chomping at the bit for something other than Magic to do. So
so keep an eye out for that. MCDM is putting out cool stuff. I'm super happy about that. I also saw just kind of a few random news things, because we didn't know, there wasn't a lot of like D&D news right up until we had that stuff from Ted and some of the Twitter stuff dropped. But I thought it was kind of cool. I saw a commercial. I don't even know how this happened. Magic the Gathering is releasing cereals, 3 different flavors of cereals that look like those candy cereals that I loved as a kid that would have Count Chocula, but then there was like the other 3 monsters had theirs too.
Blueberry.
So like I don't even remember what they were, but I was always like, as a kid, I wanted them because I wanted sugary cereals. But I thought, oh my God, who at Magic the Gathering decided, you know what we need? You know what our world needs? Magic the Gathering world needs 3 cereals dedicated to characters within. But so on December 19th, in 2 days, you can order 3 different boxes of cereal, or 1 box, or all 3 boxes, or whatever. I have not decided if I want to try this or not. I used to be a big cereal guy. I have not been in the last probably 5 or 6 years. But maybe I will. Maybe I don't know. The other cool news thing I saw that I thought was super interesting, Henry Cavill has been in the works, and I think this is confirmed now, created a deal with Amazon to bring Warhammer 40K as a show, the franchise, to the screen and do it the right way, because apparently he is super passionate about Warhammer 40K. And that is the only other world I can think of that is on par with like a Forgotten Realms, and maybe actually bigger and deeper and more written about with true authors and books and supported by games and books and stuff. The only other world I can think of that's as big as anything Wizards of the Coast has put out is definitely from White Dwarf, Warhammer. Fantasy and Warhammer 40K are some big franchises. And to see, Henry Cavill come out and say, well, let's do a movie and do this thing right, that could be pretty amazing.
Well, not a movie, a show. I think they want a series.
An Amazon show. Yeah.
So I don't know anything about the Warhammer universe other than it's very beloved. But I was excited for this too, because Henry Cavill, he did great as The Witcher. I think it's kind of sad because they replaced him as The Witcher so he could go back to being Superman. And then James Gunn said, no, we're going to cancel like all of those actors and we're going to start fresh, kind of a thing. So James Gunn is writing a Superman movie now to kind of spearhead the new DC cinematic universe, which is kind of sad because Henry Cavill's cool. Like, and I thought he made a fine Superman. I just think he was in a couple of bad movies. And spoilers, there was a cameo of him at the end of Black Adam, and I was excited to see him back. But apparently the Black Adam 2 movie is canceled, and so is any future Superman Henry Cavill movies. So
I liked
this
him in
is his next attempt. And I don't think contracts are signed, but I think they're talking about it. So don't put all your eggs into this basket just yet. But I mean, honestly, it'd be so cool. Like, that'd be awesome. So.
Yeah, the movie I liked him in was the Mission Impossible one.
Oh, yeah.
He played such a great character. And that's one of my favorite fight
Super
scenes
fun
ever.
villain.
They go in that bathroom and they just start fighting, and it's Tom Cruise and him fighting the super martial arts dude and getting whooped all over. I was just like, that is such a cool scene.
It's great.
I love that. So that was the news that I kind of had stumbled on either in Twitter or in YouTube commercials or wherever, you get your Dungeons and Dragons news at. But you said you don't play any Dungeons and Dragons, which seems weird because you're running a Modron.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. So we have so many cancellations.
Everybody's
we haven't
been
played.
Sick or stuff going on.
People are. It's the holidays, so people are going places. But the week before I had to cancel, and I think the week before that we played, and all I remember is they went to Bytopia kind of by accident. They had like 3 different areas they could go to, but we ended up going to Bytopia. So now I've been prepping this like Bytopia adventure, the next step of the march, and it's like, well, I had to cancel, and then there was a snowstorm and Ted had to cancel because he had to work, and then next week is Christmas, so we're not playing. So I think the 29th is we're gonna get back and actually play Thursday.
Yeah, we might be
December
done till
29th.
the first of the year. Also, our group, we got a couple people sick and stuff.
Yeah.
Too.
And that's been fun. If you guys are following along, really great players, and a story that I think is fun. I'm actually pulling from the Great Modron March, Planebreaker a little bit, and Dead Gods, which is another Planescape module from 2nd edition. And I'm kind of creating my own story with this because as we were running through the Great Modron March, the quests are very simple because they are for like level 5 players, and I have level like 14 players now, and so it's kind of like they could easily do a lot of these, and it's not just monster level. It's like straight up like, we need you to travel here, and they're like, okay, blink, we're there, pick it up. The Star Trek teleporter problem where it's like, okay, we got it, bye. So I've been adapting some other stuff to make it a little more interesting, and we have had a couple sessions where we haven't had fights. It's just been talking and figuring things out, because I think higher level D&D is less fights. It's more
I can see that.
Yeah, because you can't, I don't know, it's just
you
more
have
like
more ways to try to get around something
and things like that.
You have more ways to get information, you have more ways to decide if you want to fight or not fight, and then you have more ways to say, well, if we don't want to fight, how else could we do this? All we need to do is steal it and get out of here. We don't have to
and a lot of times they're like, cast, they're not actually doing this, but you're like, I cast paralysis on him. Okay, let's tie him up and interrogate him. And I was like, well, that combat lasted however long. So it's been fun to try to understand high level D&D too, because I don't think I've ever ran anything past like 10th or 11th level. So
yeah, I bet it has to be different. There has to be a different mentality. It's not just we're going to go in the dungeon and kind of walk through a few levels and we're out. It's probably got to be a little bit more because those characters, what was that one thing where we always talked about, like, character levels meant you were dealing with local stuff at 1 to 3 or something, but by the time you got to 5, you're maybe at baronial level kind of problems or kingdom level problems, but you start to get to 10 and you're like in continent level problems, and then 15, 20s, you're at world ending scenario. You're only contacted for Armageddon,
so you're not concerned about the petty thug down on the you're like, we got to stop this meteor from crashing into the planet.
The Knoll problem out at the farms, that's not for you.
And then Dungeon Crawl Classics, my player didn't like his halfling, which we were like, that's totally understandable. The halfling is the probably the worst designed. Not that it's bad, but it is the worst designed. It's like the one I would not want to play.
You should have led with that. How can we redesign the halfling? And
I don't know. That's a
That
good
should
question.
be a show. Why is the halfling bad? Now I want to know.
But so we made him an elf, and he got a bunch of spells, and then he rolled really high casting a spell, and part of it was, well, you can teleport. And so I was like, huh. And so we agreed that it was kind of a fun ending to where they were exploring the island, and the goal was to leave the island, and apparently this teleport spell would allow that. And so they teleported away, and I gave them some options. I was like, we could play like this, or this with these same characters. But what I really want to play is Perils of the Purple Planet. Like, can we say that this spell went wrong and you guys wound up here, and now this is the adventure we're going to play? And they're like, yes. So when we pick up in...
I love that.
Oh, tomorrow, actually. No, not tomorrow, but January. When we pick up January, we're going to play Perils of the Purple Planet, which I'm so stoked to play. And I did wake up in the middle of the night, and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot about the barrier around the island that prevents teleportation. Well, it's too late now, and I went back to sleep. So there was that where I was like, I could have prevented that, but I think I was just excited. So we're going to run that, which I'm really excited. But what had you been doing in D&D?
Our boys were sick, so yeah, we've had a couple. We played the week before, but not this week. We changed our nights to Thursday to try to move things around. But we're in that season 2 where everybody's having trouble getting together. I suspect we won't be back together till January, going full bore. I have absolute plans to be running a game in January. I have absolute plans to be doing a bunch of things when January kicks off. Just like we did how many years ago, kicking this show off as January came around. And we said, hey, let's do this little project called a podcast, and kept it going. So definitely got things that I'm right now using the next couple of weeks to get ready for some cool stuff. But I'll still be playing that on Thursday. I want to be running a game on a different night. And I'm getting super excited about building a game, starting a game, running a game. The most exciting part is the right before the game starts, because your mind is going all over the place where things could go and what you could do and what storylines you could try to tell and what characters might happen or do, and what system you're going to use, all that kind of stuff. You get excited about it. So that's where I'm at. I'm at this super high level of excitement of kicking something off in January and getting it going and moving. So that's awesome. What I'm doing over the next couple of weeks. That and playing lots of games and staying out of the snow, because we got snow here too. So,
yeah, I wonder when did we start? Was it 2019 or 2018? I don't remember.
I thought it was 2020. I thought it was the January of 2020. Aren't we 2 years in now, or are we 3 years in?
We got to be 3 years in.
We're at 228 shows.
Yeah, well, we were...
We'd have to go back to the other notes.
No, we started before my son was born. I remember that because he was born and we showed him on the stream. So
yeah,
it has to be at least 3 years, but I want to say it was 20. It's either 2018 or 2019, but anyway.
Well, we just go to the channel, right?
I don't
just
even
go all the way down to the bottom, and then we see the very first episode 1. What day was that? I'm almost there.
Oh, your mouse is so squeaky. Oil it. That's our show, ladies and gentlemen.
Episode 1 from YouTube got 641 views. Says it was 4 years ago, Jordan.
There you go. See, I told you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does it give us the date? How do you find the date? May 17th, 2018?
Oh, that's because I uploaded it later back to the thing, yeah. So maybe we're 5 years in. You really think it's 2 years? I don't know. I was trying to find our old notes. Where are our old notes?
Wait, look how young we looked, too, 4 years ago. We should do a rewatch of episode 1 in one square, but we sit and watch and comment on it. It was so interesting. Look at all the stuff behind you as I look at that. Look at all the stuff behind me.
Yeah.
Crazy. Episode 1.
Yeah, I can only find our notes for 2021. I can't find the 2020 or earlier. So anyway,
yeah, because
now
I don't think we had a rambling. Google Doc.
Lucian's hungry.
I'm
Jordan
hungry.
needs more coffee. We will not be back next week because it is Christmas. So we're going to have that day off, but I think we will be back on the 31st?
Yeah, I'm not doing anything.
So I should be able to do the 31st, just can't do the 24th. But we'll talk about, that'll be our year-end review show. Maybe we'll reflect back on the 2022 of Dungeons and Dragons and our show and just what we've accomplished and what we're doing and things like that. Anything else before we take off?
That is it.
Oh,
Everybody
well, happy
have a
birthday.
wonderful holiday.
Yeah, have a happy holiday, everybody, and we'll see you next time on another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. Bye.
Bye.